So what I'll do is I'll start with dashboards. Uh, why would I need a dashboard, right? The idea behind a dashboard is I want to present a number of worklets together. What is a worklet? A worklet is a report, right? So I want to, let's say I'm creating a recruiting dashboard. And the idea is I want to add a number of recruiting related reports. For example, the number of job requisitions created in a given week, the number of candidates who have applied in a given week, or the candidate application trend, uh, the different sources from where candidates are applying. So I have these, let's say, 3 or 4 or 5 relevant reports, related reports, which are all related to recruitment, and I want to present them all together, right, on a single screen. And these reports should be available, let's say, to the recruiting admin. So that's when I'll go ahead and create a dashboard. All these reports, or worklets as they are called, they're added to the dashboard, right? And the dashboard is then in turn shared with the recruiting administrator. So the moment they open the dashboard, they have this details of all these 5 or 6 different views that they want to see, right? Now, creating a dashboard, one of the simplest tasks that you'll see when it comes to reporting. So what I'll do is I'll quickly create a couple of reports, right? I'll just add 1 or 2 fields, and then I'll go ahead and create a dashboard. So my create custom report, I'm creating one advanced report. Uh, right, I'm calling it. Uh, oh,
So while you do that, Ali,
mm-hmm.
when you create a dashboard, you add those worklets there, right?
Yeah.
So when you add these worklets, is it possible in Workday to give, let's say, filters on a visual level, on a worklet level?
Um, See, we provide filter on the dashboard level, and
Uh-huh.
then the values that we provide as part of that filter, they can then be passed to one or multiple worklets. But then if a worklet is part of a dashboard, then obviously you'll not be able to manually enter values for a specific worklet. Then that defeats the whole purpose of a dashboard. Does this make sense? So I can still provide prompts at the overall dashboard level and then enter values in that dashboard prompt. That can be done.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So,
You
for
will you will
example, let's say,
Mhm.
just trying to understand if it's possible or not. Let's say we create a chart, and that
Mhm.
chart gives you the total number of total number of candidates that have been hired across
Mhm.
the organization.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
Now, next to it, I want the, let's say, and then we have a percentage external hire rate. Okay.
Right.
So let's say the organization's external hire rate is at 35-40%.
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
want another visual to the side of it, which will be filtered by which will change depending on the filters, that is, let's say, BU,
Mhm.
business unit,
Mhm.
so that the business can see, they can compare it to the overall organization's percentage. So if you are creating a prompt on the overall dashboard level,
Mhm.
uh,
Mhm.
can you restrict one of the worklets to not react to that prompt?
Yeah, that can be done.
Okay. Okay. Cool.
Okay, so what I'll do is I'll quickly create a couple of very simple reports just so that we can see them. So one would be a very simple advanced report, since you guys have already covered it. So how do I enable a report to be available on a dashboard?
There is an option of checking, I think, enable as worklet or something. You check that box and then.
Exactly. Yeah. So the first thing that you'll do is you'll enable that report as a worklet, right? And you'll then define on which dashboard this worklet is available. We'll come to that. So I have created one report, very simple, nothing fancy. And then I'll create one more report. This time let's create a matrix report. I'm calling it workers by company.
And is there a restriction, Ali,
Mhm.
on the type of reports that you can add as a worklet, or is it like all the reports can be added as worklets?
Or any report can be added as a worklet.
Any reports? Okay.
I don't. Okay. What I'll do is I would group it based on the company, and that's it. Okay. So this is all I'm doing right now. Okay. Now the first thing that I'll do is I'll need to create a dashboard, right? Now Workday has already given us a lot of standard dashboards, right? But in this case, we need to create a custom dashboard. So my task is, first thing that I'll do is I'll create a custom dashboard, right? Okay, I'll go ahead and give a dashboard name. So let's call it ZF HCM dashboard. Okay. Okay. The next thing that I need to specify. Okay. As I mentioned, the first thing that you need to specify is the domain that this dashboard is going to be part of, right? So the idea is, let's say I share this dashboard or I include this dashboard in some domain, let's call it ABC. Now, any security groups which has access to that domain called ABC would be able to access this dashboard. Does this make sense? So the idea is, if I have shared my dashboard, which I'm calling as DB1, if I have shared this dashboard with, let's say, worker details, compensation domain, right? So if I include this dashboard in this domain, right? Now, any security groups which has access to this domain would be able to access this dashboard as well, because I'm including this dashboard in this domain, right? Or if I want, Workday has also given us a lot of custom domains. So what I can also do is I can add this dashboard in one of the custom domains which are available. So there are lots of custom domains. So I can, for example, add this dashboard to custom domain 94, right? Then I'll go to that domain. Right? I'll go to edit security permissions for that domain. So I would, I'm enabling this domain, right? Edit permissions, right? And now I'm saying, let's say HR auditors or system auditors or whoever, they have access to this domain. So these security groups have access to this domain, and this dashboard that I've created, it's part of this domain. So all these security groups would be able to access this dashboard, right? So either I can add it to an existing domain, or I can add my dashboard to these custom domains. Right?
And
So
domain has to be singular, right? They cannot be multiple domains. They
no,
cannot use.
we can.
You can.
So
Okay.
yeah. So in this case, for example, I'm adding it to both a custom domain and let's say worker data, worker summary reports to domain. So I can add a dashboard to multiple domains as well.
So
Right?
in classical case, Ali,
Mhm.
when do we use this sort of combination? Like
Okay.
you must have worked on multiple projects. So when do we use these combinations?
See, it really depends on the requirement. Let's say I want a certain dashboard to be available to HR administrators, let's assume, but also I want this dashboard to be available, let's say, to a specific subset of support team, right, who have a unique security requirement. Now, HR administrator is an existing security group. That means they already have access to a lot of domains, right? So then I'll decide, okay, I'll go ahead and add this dashboard to an existing domain. I'll not really bother about adding, enabling a new custom domain, adding HR admin role to that domain, because then that is an additional task for me, right? All I'll do is I'll add this dashboard to an existing domain that HR administrators already have access to, and then that is done, right? Whether it is custom or okay. Let's see where is if our dashboard is not yet created. So this is where you can see all the dashboards. We'll come to this task in a bit. I was just wondering if our dashboard is already created. It is not. Okay.
And while we are on this page, Ali, these dashboards that are delivered, Workday delivered dashboards, we cannot edit these dashboards, right? We can copy and then make an edit.
No, dashboards we can edit, and we'll see that. Okay. Okay, I'm just adding it to this domain, and just for the sake of it, I'll also add it to custom domain, some random custom domain. Let's add it to custom domain 1. Okay, and then the dashboard icon, this is basically what icon you see on the dashboard, right? I'm calling it, let's call it birthday business processes for now. So these icons are all Workday delivered. A dashboard can have a maximum of 6 worklets. So any single dashboard tab can have a maximum of 6 worklets, but then you can have multiple tabs on a dashboard. We will have a look at that. So maximum of 6 worklets are allowed on any dashboard page or any dashboard tab. So now my dashboard configuration, or at least the basic dashboard configuration, is done, which means now I can go to my reports. I have ZF reports. Okay, start proxy. So is there a task I can use to, for example, in this case, because I created my reports with Logan McNeil's access and those reports are not shared with anyone right now, this user is not able to search for those reports. But is there a way this user can still see a report definition even if that report is not shared with him? Do we have some task available for it? Okay, so that is basically available to report writers, report admins. The idea is in production, not all reports are shared with you, right? Let's say you are a reporting administrator or a report writer. Now you come across someone raises an issue saying that there's some issue in this report, right? And you want to investigate, but the problem is it's a payroll report and it's not shared with you. So how do you check? View custom report allows you to basically see any report, even if it's not shared with you. And then you can go ahead and edit it, share it with yourself, or make yourself an owner, and then go ahead and investigate. Okay, any which ways. So I'm coming here. I am going to edit my report because now I have to enable this report as a worklet. So I'll come to this report. Right. I'm going to, I can go ahead and edit them, share them with myself, and then I'll be able to. You see, I don't have an option to run them or test them.
So quick question there, out of curiosity, Ali, when you click on that drop down, those options, there's an option of translate. What does that option refer to?
We see, for example, I've been working for a German client recently. So you have the option wherein you can translate, for example, all the column headers, right? You have
Oh,
created some
okay.
calc field, so you can go ahead
Hmm.
and do that translation.
Got it.
Okay, so I'm coming to the output option. I'll go to worklet, and this is where I'll go ahead and enable this report as a worklet. Okay, now the moment I do that, my report is by default available on the home dashboard. What is home dashboard? Home dashboard is nothing but your home page, right? Your home landing page, which every user would have access to. So by default, the moment you enable a custom report as a dashboard, it becomes available on your home landing page. In this case, I don't want it to be available on the home landing page. Instead, I want it to be available on the ZF dashboard. Okay, now if you see this report, it's an advanced report, right? And it will basically give me all the active workers in the system. There could be 10,000 active workers. So will this dashboard show me, or will this report on the dashboard show me all the rows? No, it wouldn't, right? So this is where I configure what is the maximum number of rows that would be displayed on the worklet on the dashboard, right? And all the other rows are hidden. And then you have the option of clicking on view more, wherein then the main report will run, right? Okay. So by default, or as per your configuration on the dashboard, this report will show maximum of 10 rows or 5 rows or whatever you have configured here. But then when you maximize it, when you click on view more, what happens? Should Workday run this very worklet? Or when you click on view more, should a completely different report run? So you have the option of configuring on the dashboard itself. This particular report will run, but then when you maximize it, a different worklet runs or a different report is executed. Okay, the other options is when should the dashboard data refresh? So the default setting is every sign in. Now what would happen is once you have opened a dashboard, if you close it, reopen it, unless you have signed out and signed back in, the dashboard data would not refresh. So you have the option of saying that refresh dashboard data every time the dashboard is opened, right? So this way, every time you open the dashboard, all the worklets will re-execute and give you the latest data. Or you can just say only when I re-sign in and then open the dashboard for the first time, dashboard should run and fetch the data, right? Okay, so now I have enabled this report as a worklet. What I'll also do is I'll go ahead and share this report. If I don't do that, I'll not be able to share it on the dashboard. Okay, let me leave it as is. Currently, if you go to the share tab, you'll see that this is not shared with anyone, right? So I'll leave this report as is and say done. Okay, let's go to the other report. Right, output. I want to enable this again as a worklet. I'm adding it on the ZF dashboard. But then I'll also share this report, or let me share this report with only HR admins, HR auditors, and let's say HR partners. Okay, now the dashboard configuration itself would happen on the maintain dashboard task. So this is where I'll go to my maintain dashboards task, right? I'll search for my dashboard, right? This is a custom dashboard. So I can run this dashboard from here. Obviously, the dashboard doesn't have any worklets added to it right now. I can edit the dashboard or delete the dashboard. So this is where I'll edit my dashboard. The settings is something we have already done. So if you remember, when we created our dashboard for the first time, we added it to the domains, we specified the worklets, we specified the icon. If I want, I can still go ahead and edit it from here and make the changes. Now I'll come to content and go ahead and add the content. Okay, this is where we can add multiple tabs up to 6. Each tab can have up to 6 worklets. So each tab can have up to 6 worklets, and we can add up to 6 tabs. So I'll go ahead and name this tab as, let's call it tab 1, ZF tab 1. And this is where I'll go ahead and add the worklets. If I go in here, if I come to all, you'll see it shows me only one report. The reason it doesn't show me the other report, even though it is enabled on this dashboard, is because the other report is not shared with anyone, right? So this is what happens, or the prerequisite for a report to be available on a dashboard is that it is shared with at least one security groups, right? Okay, the moment I add this dashboard or this worklet, all the security groups which are enabled on this report are automatically added, right? So if I come to my report again, because I have shared this report with only 3 security groups, those security groups are added here. Now this is where I can configure on the dashboard itself. Do I want this report to be available to all security groups? So maybe even though this report is available with all these 3 security groups, in terms of dashboard, I only want it to be available to HR auditor or HR administrators. So the dashboard level set configuration is something I can do here, right? And then I can specify whether this worklet is a required worklet or an optional worklet. So have you looked at the home page configuration for a required or optional worklet? So do you know how I can add additional applications on my home page? Okay, so
Um,
if I go to, as an example, to my home landing page, I have these all apps. So if I click on view all apps, so this is where I can see all the apps which are shared with me, right? Is there a way my ability to add additional apps or remove existing apps is contingent on whether those apps or worklets are required or optional? So if I click on view all apps, right? Now this is my home landing page or my home dashboard, right? I have this gear icon here. I can click on configure apps, right? Okay, if you see, all these apps are optional, right? The reason I know, okay, not all of these apps are optional. Apps or worklets from here, these are all optional. And the reason I know these worklets or apps are optional and not these one is because I have the option to delete them, rename them, change them, reorder them. So from here onwards, if you see, I can remove these apps, right? Or reorder them. I can move them up and down. So those worklets which are enabled as optional worklets, they can be added, removed, reordered by the user for himself or herself. So obviously, whatever changes I'm doing for myself, right? For my own home page. But these ones, they're all enabled as required. And because these are enabled as required, I don't have an option to delete them or rename them or reorder them, right? So this configuration is controlled by whether I have enabled a worklet as a required or as an optional worklet on the dashboard, right? We'll also look at the home page configuration in just a bit. So any which ways, I'm back here, ZF. edit, add content, tab, workers, right? I want to add a worklet, right? All the security groups are displayed. And this is where I can configure, and then I can also define the worklet size. So we just have one option. 1x is the smaller worklet size, or 2x is it will show the bigger uh, version of the worklet. And then I can add some unique name to the dashboard. So I don't want this name to be displayed. I want to call it workers by company, not ZF. I'll save it because else it keeps getting refreshed. And then I'll say done again. It would take me back here. Okay, now in addition to we'll also add our second report in a bit. But in addition to the custom reports, let's say I also want to add some standard reports, right? As menu links. So I can go to the menu option and then add any other standard reports. So I can, for example, I'm saying I'm creating a section called compensation, right? In this section, I want to add, let's say, some 2 or 3 reports. I can add some tasks. I can also add some external links, right? So I want to add, let's say, a link which takes them to some compensation page in an external website. So I can add some external links. I can add some tasks, let's say create supervisory org, or I can also add some custom reports, right? I'm coming in here. Uh, okay, so let's say I want to add a task called worker audit or some compensation audit. Okay, so I'll come here. So these are all standard reports that you want to add. I'll click on create custom allowed worklet task, right? I'll select the task, which can be a report as well. So for example, let's say job profile, right? So we know that this is a report, right? So I'm adding this report. I can give it a name. I can add some comments. I'll say okay. And then I want to add, let's say, job details. I want to add another task, let's say. Right. Similarly, I can create more sections. We'll just create one more and add some random reports or tasks. Here I'll call it compensation, or let's say audit. I'll quickly add. The reason it doesn't show me anything under custom reports is no other custom report is added right now, right, to the dashboard. Okay, comp, I think it's employee comp audit. So I want to add some audit reports. I want to add one more. I'm calling it custom report audit. So these are all standard reports which Workday has already delivered, right? And I want to add them to this dashboard. This would not run, but then it would provide worker with an option or link to run these reports. Okay, what I'll do is I would quickly run this dashboard from here. So now I can come in here, quickly test this dashboard, right? So this is my tab. These are those sections that I've added. So if you remember, I had created two sections, job details, wherein I had added a couple of tasks or reports, and then I created one more called audit, right? And this is where if I click on view more, so this is what happens based on the number of rows that you have selected. I think it was maximum 10 rows by default. So that's what Workday displays me, and everything else is categorized under others, right? Now, when I click on view more, this is where that other option kicks in, wherein you have configured whether Workday should run this very worklet or should it run a completely different worklet when the worklet is maximized, right? Okay, I want to now what I want is I want to add this dashboard directly to the workers homepage, right? So currently this dashboard is created, but the problem is users will have to search for this dashboard, right? So I'll have to go to the dashboard. Similarly, we can go ahead and now go to the other report, share that report with whoever we want, and then add that report to this dashboard. And we'll quickly do that. So now the idea is I'll have to, if you see, search for this dashboard and then run this dashboard. But that's not what I want, right? So this is what I'll do now. I'll go back to the task maintain dashboards, right? Now the question was, can we go ahead and edit a standard dashboard? For example, home dashboard or any of these standard dashboards. If you see, we have the edit options directly. So these are all Workday delivered dashboards. We can go ahead and edit them.
Quick one. So on the same page where you were there on the maintain dashboard task, you see the option of editing the dashboards. Then for
Right.
some of the dashboards, you see the option of run directly, while for others, you don't see that option.
They're not shared with me. If you see, that's why they're
Acha.
not
Okay.
highlighted, right? I don't have
Okay.
the, maybe the domains are not enabled. These are all
Mm-hmm.
standard dashboards, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, okay,
Okay.
any which ways, I'll go to home. That's my home landing page, right? I'll come in here. Again, I don't have the option to delete it. That's because this is a Workday delivered dashboard, but then I have the authorization to run it or edit it, right? And that's what I'm going to do. So now I'll come here. This is where we saw what worklets were configured as required or optional. So now I'll come here. Some of these worklets, because they are configured as required, users are not able to remove them, right? So AK headcount 15, I think it was, if I open a new tab, right? And then go to my home page. View all apps, right? AK headcount 15. If I go in here, I don't have an option to hide it or change it. And that's because it's enabled as a required workload, right? So I'll go ahead and remove it. But what I'll also do is I'll go ahead and add my own worklet or my own dashboard. So this is where I'll go ahead and add my dashboard, right? It shows me all the security groups that the associated domain is shared with. So this dashboard, I have added this dashboard to certain domain, and that domain is shared with all these security groups. So in the case of dashboard itself, when I add a worklet, it shows me all the security groups that that particular worklet or report is shared with. But then when I add a dashboard itself as a worklet, it shows me all the security groups that this dashboard has access to. And how is it derived? Based on the domain that this dashboard has been added to. Now this is where again I can specify which of these security groups should still have access to this, or I can go ahead and remove them, right? And then I can configure whether it is a required or an optional worklet, right? And now when I go in here, Okay, so this time, if I go to my home landing page and click on view all apps, right? A new dashboard is available. And instead of having to search for the dashboard, I'll be able to directly run it from here. All right. Okay, let's go ahead and make a few other changes. So the first thing that I'll have to do is I'll go ahead and share the other report as well. So view custom report. What was the other report that we created? ZF worker details. Okay, what I'll do is I'll go ahead and edit this report. First thing, I'll share this report with all authorized users. I would go back to the other report, which is view custom report. And here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some prompts, and we'll see how we can add the prompts to the dashboard as well. Let me add a couple of prompts. So I'll come to filter. I want company prompt. And let's say I want supervisory org prompt as well. So I have a question. Let's say, so have you seen this prompt on report wherein you can see supervisory org and then subordinate supervisory org?
Yes.
Do you know how you can add that prompt if on your
No.
reports? Okay, so let's say I want to add, I'm saying, and what is the difference between these two comparison types?
So it means one is it'll run even if we want to ignore the prompt.
Yeah. So with the second case, you're basically saying this is an optional prompt, right? If the user doesn't enter any values for supervisory org,
It'll
then
still run.
yeah, it would basically go ahead and ignore this filter criteria. So if you look at the description, it says prompt the user for the value. So basically end user would have an option to enter the supervisory org. But then if the user chooses not to enter any supervisory org, then the report behaves as if there's no filter on supervisory org, right? So this particular filter condition is completely ignored, and then a report will get you details for all the supervisory organizations, right? So if value is not entered, then this prompt or this filter is not run, right? Or completely ignored. That's what it means. Okay, this basically means that the value has to be entered, or whatever value is entered by the user, system would consider that value and always execute this filter criteria, right? Okay, now I'll come to prompts. I'll say prompts, right? So this is where I'm getting all the prompts. Now, some of these prompts, if you see, I have not added them. I did add the company prompt. I did add the supervisory org prompt, but where do you think I'm getting these other prompts from? Contingent worker type, employee type, worker
Business
types.
object.
Okay. No, not business objects. They are coming from the data source, right? So
Data source, yes.
some data sources, they come with built-in prompts. Okay. So I am not specifying any default value for company, but then for supervisory org, let me run it first and we'll see what prompt I get. When I run it, These are the prompts I'm getting, right? So if you see, I'm only getting supervisory org. But then what I want is if I select a supervisory org and then check that include all subordinates button, it should be able to fetch me data for all subordinate organizations. Now, how do I get that checkbox, right? There are two ways. Either I add or workers by organization data source. If I do that, it comes with that built-in prompt, right? So the first option is I select workers by active organization or workers by organization data source. Oh, yes, we have. So I would okay. So on the prompts tab on the supervisory org, what I'll say is under default type, I'll say determine default value at runtime. And here I'll add another field. If you would have seen, there are a lot of prompt related fields. So for example, there's a field called prompt supervisory org. Let me search for it. So see, we have a lot of these fields, prompt supervisory org and subordinates and so on and so forth. So this is the field I'm selecting. So basically what I'm saying is in this supervisory org prompt, right? I'm feeding the value of a completely different field. Now, what is this field? This is a prompt field. Now, if I go back and select this checkbox once again, and this time, if I scroll down, if you see Workday has now added supervisory org and include supervisory org. So these two fields are coming from this field that I have selected. Now, I don't want this. I'll say do not prompt at runtime. So ultimately what I'm doing is I'm prompting this supervisory org and include subordinate organizations to the end user. Whatever value of supervisory org and this checkbox are selected, that value then feeds into my main filter field, which is this one, through this prompt. Right? Okay, I want to hide the other fields as well, except for, let's say, company. I want to make it a required field. Okay, let's run this now. Right? So if you see now, I have supervisory org and include subordinate. Right? Okay. If I simply run for all companies, this is what I get. If I now select a specific supervisory org and select this checkbox, it will also get me data for those values. Okay, so why did I do this? Because we want to see how prompts behave on a dashboard. So now I'll go to the dashboard. Right? So I'll also add this report to the dashboard. I'll go to the task maintain dashboards once again. Edit my dashboard. Okay, so how do I add prompts to my dashboard? So we see there's something called prompt set, right? But I don't have an option to select any prompt set. What is a prompt set? What I'm saying is I'm adding a prompt or prompts to that dashboard, and those prompts can then be shared by one or all the worklets which are enabled on this dashboard. I can add some description if I want to. And this is where I'll select the fields. So the first field that I'm selecting is company because one of my reports requires company. Now it gives me a lot of fields, right? I'll have to check which one of these is relevant. Now, how do I check them? Let's take the first one. Now this is where I can check them. If you see, if I go in here, it's allowing me to select companies, right? So I know this is the relevant company field, right? It shows me global modern services as well. But if I search for, if I take a different company, right? So I can, so this prompt allows me to enter companies. But if I select something else, let's go in here. So many times it's not apparent which one to select, right? So let's say I'm confused. I'm selecting this one. Let's see what company values are available. So if it's not the right prompt set, it will not allow you to select the parameters. Okay, in this case, both are relevant. So I can select any one of them because it's allowing me to pass the company parameters. I think there are others, for example, worker type, wherein you'll see the difference. Let's see if I can. I'm also adding the second one, which is supervisory org. Again, a lot of these are displayed. I'm not sure which one. Displays active. Okay. This description looks relevant. I'm selecting this one. Let's see if I can select supervisory org just for a confirmation. Yes, I can. So I know this is relevant for me, right? Okay, I can specify default value. I can specify override. I can configure whether they are required or not. So I can do all these configuration on the prompt set, right? And my prompt set is created. I can add any number of additional prompts to this prompt set. Okay, now I'll go back to my maintain dashboard. I would search for my dashboard, edit. Now, how do I add this prompt set to the prompts? So I'll have to select configurable or unselect configurable by user. This is where I can select my prompt set, right? So I'm searching for ZF. Now, what I'll also do is I'll come in here. I'll add my other report, ZF, worker details. Now, this report I shared with all authorized users, right? And that's why everything is displayed. Now, I can go in here and decide which one it should be available to. Okay, now if I scroll to the right, because I have added a prompt set, now I'll also have to map the prompts. So what do I mean by mapping the prompt? Which of the prompts that are part of this prompt set should match to which prompt or should map to which prompt on this report or on this particular worklet, right? If I don't do that, and what happens is Workday by default identifies some mapping, right? I'm checking configurable by user. I'm adding my prompt set. And the moment I do that, now Workday enables this map prompt sets option. Now, wherever it is apparent, Workday would automatically go ahead and I'll have to say done and then come back and then now it's giving me two errors because these are the two prompts that I've added, right? Now, this is where I can specify any default values. So I'm saying specify default value, for example, and I want to specify global forums. Right? So these are the values I've configured on the dashboard level on these prompts. But then I'll also have to do the mapping on the worklet level. And that's why I'm getting this error. Right? So now I'll come in here. I'll do the map prompts. Right? Company, if you see, the default option is use value from the dashboard prompt. So we're saying this is the prompt field, or these are the prompts on the report, right? And we are saying use for this particular prompt on the report, use the corresponding prompt which is available from the dashboard. But then on the dashboard, there are more than one prompts available. So here I'll have to specify which prompt I want to map. So Workday automatically shows me that for this only company prompt is relevant, right? And here I can go ahead and map the supervisory org prompt, right? So I'm mapping the supervisory org prompt on the dashboard to the supervisory org prompt here on the worklet. And so is the case for company. Now for this include subordinate organization, I'm saying yes, right? And I'm saying done. So now my errors are gone because I've done the mapping. I'll also add the other report, worker details. But then this report doesn't have any prompts, right? So if I come to map prompts, right, it doesn't have company prompt, it doesn't have supervisory org prompt, right? So I'm only providing prompt values to one report, not to other, right? And I'm saying done, right? It is showing me those prompt values, and then it is also passing those prompt values to the report, right? So company default prompts, if I want, I can now go ahead and change it. Obviously, whatever values I provide, they would only be passed to the report to which this mapping has happened. It doesn't show me include subordinate organization because I've already added a default value for it, right? So my other report, it doesn't need those prompts and it runs without those prompts. Make sense? Any questions? Okay, one last thing. I want to add some additional tabs, right? Currently, my dashboard has only one tab. So I want to add some additional tabs. As I mentioned, we can add up to 6 tabs on the dashboards. So I can come in here, ZF, edit, right? So this is my first tab. I want to add some additional tabs, right? And I'm calling it tab ABC or whatever, right? Again, I can specify whether this particular tab will use any prompt set or not. And if I'm saying this will use some prompt set, I can use a completely different prompt set for this tab. And then I'm coming to worklets. I can add any worklet. I'll simply for the sake of it, I'll add the same worklet. Right? I'm adding the same worklet. So I can add up to 6 tabs here. Right? I'm saying done. Let's run it from here itself. If I run it now, if you see, I have 2 tabs. I can go ahead and reorder those tabs, right? Make it the second tab, make this the first tab, and so on and so forth. So that reordering can be done. This tab only has one report. It doesn't have any prompt sets. This tab has 2 reports. It has a menu. It has prompt sets and so on and so forth. right? Any questions? So dashboards, as I mentioned, it's not a very difficult topic. It's one of the simpler topics in reporting. The most important thing that you would want to know when learning reporting is calculated fields, right? So that is important topic.